so this is the one I'm going to get to first time I was asked the 22-year post while at the board, retired from the agency in 2019. Was fortunate enough to work under 3 executive directors during my tenure, all 3 exceptional ones. I'm a veteran of Carter Smith. I worked for several years at Bomb Creek. We started my career in Culberson County in 1996 as biologist Van Mark, before we got their executive director, Andrew Sansom. And Andy's been the moderator of the state that leads. Well, after retiring, he's continued to serve the conservation community of the state of Texas, and is probably regarded as one of the most conservationists in the state. He's going to be, moderator says in some of my friends, old and you, talk about water, spreading natural resources. Please welcome Andrew Sansom.
And our son raised this little took us. I just really, we're going to need another chair. I'd like to invite the other members of our panel to come up at this time. So if Danny has Bill Sibley, Gary Bishop, and D.A. Harral. Now we'll introduce we start one of those. What's us is that the most important attitude of confidence. But when you imagine to make things sound better than they actually are. Which always reminds me of a man who was trying to get insurance for his family, and he got to the point where he was filling out the form, where he had to say what had happened to his parents. Well, the problem was his father so in order to make things sound better than they actually were, you wrote on the form that his father had died while participating in a public ceremony with a platform. So now it's shut down. I want to really congratulate Sibley and Lewis and my colleague Kevin Hansen. And I know my colleague Robert Gibby, whom you heard earlier, would join me in saying that the collaboration in Texas State, if Solar Ross, is just magnificent. And it goes back almost 25 years when the Middle State and Texas State first got started. And Kevin and I was someone real brand in both Texas and in Lexington, 2 former collaborations on Griffin Stone. It's a long, wonderful experience. And I want to say, and I know my panelists will agree with me that we're so thrilled to see so many of you. We always used to say that people in Texas, as long as the water came out of the tap, they would think everything's okay. And so now it's clear that crowds like this attending meetings of this nature, that people are beginning to be concerned, and it's all over to you, and you're very grateful. I really don't like to introduce people's illness anymore, not in the I would like to introduce to you is one of the most distinguished water professionals in the state. Janet Adams has been the general manager of the Fort Davis Water Supply Corporation for 61 years. She's been the general manager of the Jeff Davis County Underground Water District for 29 years. So we are really looking forward to hearing her thoughts today. Bill Sibley and his family have lived and worked on the Last Chance Branch for 7 generations, or 127 years. Culberson County. He and his family were awarded last year from the Texas Parks and Wildlife with the Lone Star Lead Steward Awards for the work they've done on that ranch. Larry Bishop from Presidio Valley Farms is a hero along the river for his work, not only in water conservation, but his restoration. He has restored wetlands on his ranch. He has produced wood forest for riparian reservation, and he's been involved in land hunting and water conservation in the area for many years. Finally, Harral was the manager of the Harral Livestock Company in Pecos County. He is the fifth generation of Harral County in the livestock village, which has been in Texas since 1859. He and his wife Angela and their 5 normal children are all owners and active participants of the ranch, and they depend on cattle for a large part of their income. He has served as the director of the Texas and Southwestern Valley Association and very involved in this community, particularly the Methodist Church in Memphis. So please welcome the Thank you all so much. You know, I really it's on the stage every year about the growth, the price. That's very jealous.
You hear me now? Excellent.
You're good.
And I couldn't help but think about the quote that Brian Richter shared with us this morning, which was a definition of sustainability, which said that one should manage in a way to consider all of our needs, but more importantly, to manage in a way that considers the needs of future generations. I guess I have to say that there's another definition, which is we should manage water for our own needs, but also take consideration of our neighbor's needs. And so I'm really interested in hearing the views of this group about discussion that we heard earlier, that that we ought to have some kind of system such as correlative rights that allows us to take advantage of the water under our properties, but not to harm our neighbors.
So Bill, tip something. There you go. Okay, come in. That's why I don't think down. But let it get your nice chart about it. Okay. So I guess.
Yeah, it's extremely important to branch or to even farm in such a manner as to enhance the land, enhance living for future individuals. But they, like our operation, we've been at it or in the same old spot for 126 years, little over 127. 10, 11. Guidelines that I have to go by on ranch and what would my dad do? What would my mom do? And like when saints somewhere by rich I'm going, and I haven't lived up to their expectations, makes you kind of a little nervous about things. Now, the last 4 years, we've managed to operate with very little rainwater, less than an inch or 2 inches a year, and that's something that you have to deal with. That's the most important thing to deal with when it comes to longevity. As you need to have along with longevity, you need to have imagination and I want to stick to it.
At this point, I think the first thing I'd like to say is biking to the back. Can y'all hear me? And I can really turn them off. Turn them off like they're cheap.
I think the first thing I'd want to say is thanks to the others group for putting this together. And when it comes to sustainability and people with input and that are affected, that you included some people that are still trying to make a living out here. Sustainability is very important, and economics and money are a large part of it. We're stewards, and we take care of it. And we're taking care of it for the next generation, but the bills come every week. And yet everybody here knows that. Now, as far as to relative rights, and taking care of your neighbors, what flashed through my mind, my mind shot back.
They are.
32 years of shot back. I was going in as president of Texas Sheep and Goat Raisers. I was 37 years old. And a lot of people didn't think I knew anything. And I didn't know much. I don't know much for now. But they were fixing to go before the legislature with the initial proposal of school water machines. And I got called down to Uvalde to have dinner that evening with former Governor Briscoe and the chairman of the Senate Natural Resources Committee, Chairman Sarah Bill Sims, who was the executive secretary at Chief of Goat Raisers at that time. And I can't remember the name of the gentleman who was chairman of the railroad commission flew in. We went out and picked him up at the airport. There was one other and a fellow about my age, and Frank Price. He's there. He's always started senior beach manager.
Yeah.
And the governor told us that as he looked to the future of Texas, he saw that we didn't have much. And that there were a lot of people fixing to come to Texas. And he saw more industry coming to Texas. And that should be good. He wanted to encourage that. But the whole group was sitting there talking. A lot of them were pumping lots of water at that time. There were ties with San Antonio. San Antonio needed water. But they actually brought up, we don't want more tragedies where large streams are driving up. But how are we going to combine all that with private property rights to walk-off couches? And what they started etching out on that table is some type of process where you get a permit to try to develop your resource so you could get started. If in the process of developing that resource you infringe upon somebody else, then police powers could come into bearing. You could slow them down. That was their solution. But what all of them were scared of is they were stripping, and they liked the idea of local control. But what they were scared of is human nature would probably slip in there. You have a bunch of legal shenanigans go on, and then we'd end up with 30 or 40 or 50 different regulatory agencies in the state not have one plan to carry the state forward. But they thought we needed to start somewhere. They said, we got to start. And they came up with the development board at the same time. I was on the Region Down Development Board. You have a lot of ideas, and some of them have worked and some of them have been lost. And we moved to the legislature, we started moving ahead, and it happened. But a lot of the concerns that they have happened. But it was a third attempt to take care of it. That was the third attempt. Thank y'all. And we appreciate your advice.
Realize that, but I know guess I'll bring you that.
Yeah.
We try to, but yes, it's pretty. I of course, I know that my organization is with the youngest here. We started out as totally 1965. And I'm very impressed with you guys, seniors, and which all the time. And we're just kind of working in the third generation with us, young sons and all, so we spend that they. As far as transportation is concerned, it came everything to me. My dad started farming Presidio on the weekends, so leasing with 3 partners, leasing 60 acres, drilling cotton. But he was later equated to things in the soil conservation service I heard. So I got a daily lesson in taking care of soil and water stuff. I wanted to add it, if you don't mind, a little bit more to Janet's resume. She served for 10 years in the Presidio County Underwater District, and she cared for the.
Well, let me give you all a little back in history. Landowner districts changed. And Martha's Farm is Jed Davis County. We were the only district in Culberson, Texas. So we had landowners that ranches across the county too. And they came to us to join the Jed. So we became a Port County district all of a sudden, which was Presidio Valley, Trans-Pecos County, and just studies, didn't think for those different from a single county. So we did some adjusting. And then when the other three additions of farms, it was my board's decision, which is the decision to give the landowners the option if they wanted to go back to where the regional county or state agendas. We encourage those to get their back the registered, and they all did. So we're now back to a second county district. And the reason I became interested in one, this is a gentleman that just walked by me. I said, I want to land. And by the way, this gentleman, come on out, Billy.
You're all going to hear us sit down, won't you?
When he put this cripple together, he called us all.
You ever had to ask a lady, she was your elders table?
It's not good. We thank him for doing that. Growing up, I was raised 30 miles out of Fort Davis, called Tyler 118, all the 37 water, running 5 water, pure mounds. The Red Boys floated from this Mountain State Park to the Mallory Valley and Timber to so it's pretty. They also rode their bikes down to the creek and left fish, was couldn't fish. Well, then I moved the races. But at the time, there was Kent, Valentine, that were brothers, and a few ranch. Now he had 4 developments, and only one is on the water system before that is the states. All the rest of the houses you see on Jeff Davis County are others. That's all inside the place. So that's a lot of old city men. They're all domestic, residential, or mostly. So they're all, they didn't have the luxury of the house, get drink food, neither, and we have about 30 of them. So they're getting that down. But it just takes a lot. And I just want y'all to know that it's not permanent to it. West Texas is trying, it was difficult. And that's we need measures and rails, but one that is, and we had that. Hunting with us. The more the equivalent is, and everything different represent. So that's how it was actually.
So I'm cheating. DH problems about including take care of them in our mill. Because Diamondback said of the land in Texas is owned by tribes. And that means that all of our watersheds, all of our office of recharging areas, all of our river basins are basically rock coral. And so to ignore the fact that that resource is not part of water infrastructure is a terrible mistake. Because if we don't allow these people to take care properly of this landscape, and it won't matter how many sewer plants or pipes or east out footage we get. Terry Bishop has been a leader in this area, and I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the wetland restoration and riparian work that you do along the river.
When Casino was first incorporated, and it was all 1982, and they, of course, had to do it and that provide sewer service for the city, so they knew it was going upriver, it was built upriver. And I've never understood that because I was in all this, it is illegal. And so eventually, about a few years ago, they decided to, as it became larger, the system, they moved it down the down below Presidio, down below Fort Baby. And they were wanting to treat the water 10 intensely. Oh, so they didn't be forever. The thing with this is that to get that done, they just get underneath the highway through what turned out to be Maine, and then through the levee to the river. And the government, Valley Water Agency, doesn't care who you are. They're not going to shoot you out the whole lake. And so they came to me and asked if I would allow them to come across my land and just have a be able to use my diversion point, which means I was, and it's the government when they built it, that we put something in a pipeline so that I could bring water out of the river and to use it on my farm. And so, long story, I'm sure we made a deal because they'd done something else with the property or the farm at the time. And so the deal was that I would let them do that. I would take the water if I wanted to, because that's what this is. You can take it, use it if you want to. You know, sometimes too much water is worse than not enough. And so I said, well, I'll do that with the understanding that I can take all manner of care, or whatever I need. And about that time, that when I was in, actually at that time, when I did, now I'm offered this as a, Trans-Pecos water land trust, but that's Andrew Sansom, James King, Robert Potts, inspired us in we decided that at that time that we would have to close, we should close this thing down because the mission that we had started to try to do something that we got the river and Presidio Fort quickly. So what we were able to do is just not to our great disappointment. And so we gave as much money back to our donors as they would take. And so they decided to do, so long story short, we applied for a non-cook grant. That's American Middle Conservation, and some of the money that we couldn't get back to our donors was used along with that grant to build a 12-acre wetlands there, and using that treated water. And it's really turned out good. And it's over 100 species regularly seen there. And anything that don't use to supply the wetlands are taking control of the deal beside that way going to the river. And so that's how that all started.
Awesome.
Bill? I'm thrilled to see that you guys have been awarded the Lone Star Institute Award. Tell us a little bit about the stewardship activities of church churches.
Okay, what? That was nice of the 12 fighting. Oh, yes. And there's out.
Okay, I think closer.
What's also the very good luck. Breathing down our neck. So my question to you all is, what do you think is the most important thing ever with a bit? What? Of course, what do you think? In the audience?
What is the most important thing in your being?
What? I'm burning through the bucket squad. It's like three, I think. It's my estimation, the most important thing in the big middle basin is air.
So you pick up the
You can go a long ways without a drink of water. You go a long ways without a lot of things. But you can't go very far without air. So we need to, we're talking about conservative lots and things that we have touched on mostly up to now as the service structure and the different types of weeds, grass, all the things that go into raising livestock. Because without the livestock or the wildlife. We won't do that. So, on the ranches, we have a lot of different things than at the farm now or in irrigators. And we have wildlife, which we treasure dearly. It's turbines, and the smaller animals, smaller wildlife, allow them to the cougars to get along with the bears to get along with. So I'm sure everybody's probably going to bear in the back. But what we do is we have drilled some wells over the past 100 years. We drilled wells and then we put in pipelines. All of these things to maneuver the air and the water around where it needs to be, so that your animals don't abuse the land, and that they take care of what they've got, but they also take care of what they've been working for. And this is one of the most important things that we can do as a proprietor of ranch to what kind of water certainly is extremely important, since it's second on the list. But the water, it has to be managed, and if we have a cow on the ranch, and she only gets to drink water every 3 or 4 days, she's not going to do quite as well as one that getting water regularly. And so that's what we do when we're managing the rest, in order to provide the wildlife and animals and the little creatures. So if we don't provide for them, then that's going to interfere with the success of your ranching operation. And in ranching, we have numerous things that we tend to. You've got one of the most important things is mule deer. We have some of the largest electric mule deer in the United States. So they are very important to us. We're all about supplementing their feed, making sure they have water. If we move cattle from one pasture to another, we make sure that the water and everything goes with them. So that when they get through the fence on the next go round, they have a place to get drink water, and they tend to do better. Whereas if they've got all the nutrients that they need, then a lot of times they produce twin calves. Yes, sir. And so there are just a multitude of things that we have to attend to, but it's all out of love and all out of want to. So that's the nickname of the game. It's hard with it.
So DA, the ranch that my wife Nona and my daughter April and I live on is entirely dependent on breakwater feed. We do not take water from wells or any other source. So I know that you've made investments in efficiency on your ranch, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that, because I think that the other thing that landowners learn to do across the state is find more efficient ways to use water.
But that's absolutely. And of course, water and air go together. So if you move the cow from one pasture to another, you better take the air and the water with you, which is very much well otherwise. And we do as much natural rainwater as we can. When you go 4 years without significant rain, it's a little hard to beat yourself. You got to be a race car driver or something, a big truck of water on the back, where you can drag it around and service the animals that you've got there. And so that's one of the main thing that we do with our caretakers of the island. And then we certainly take advantage of their opportunity to expand our ability to do this.
He was asked about water and what we've done. If you go back to when they first moved into that area, it was already now 1888 to be caught up that range. To the north of us, there was natural water, local lines to bog tickets. We're on top of the mesa to the south, literally, Sibley, Harral. We followed, I think, the Independence Creek and played back to the east. There were just a handful of places that had natural water. So the first thing they did, they started pasturing stock out there during the winters to get fountains to do. Shortly after that, they brought several steam engines, drilling rigs out here, and they started dragging hanging matches, between horses, and drill those wells. The holes were crooked as could be, and that happened. We're still using a lot of those holes that drilled 8 is just a bigger drill. And then we've got some pictures where they were using Warren's wife Jim Cobble's build the span. They build the towers. It was sticking out of they built the towers. The towers came in sandstone, right? Then they bring them. It takes 5 days from the time they unloaded the sands till they got to crash. It's 5 days to get the girls upstairs back. They put up those towers. And then one time I was playing with that full of rods. I pulled my first set of rods when I was 5 and 4 years old. My mother had fit. We were out there, up to the band myself. I went over to trail the rods out. I broke a set of the rods.
Yeah, my.
They were all the old wooden rods. It's what wooden sharp. That poor thing wasn't even big around the sun. We about used it up. My dad worked out and shouldn't put it there again with. But he was commenting to me. You remember, you don't know, but when they first pulled these whales, had a team of horses tied to a freight wagon. They used the freight from the wagon. When it's going forward, and they tried to control horses back up. That was a broncs. That was the broncs that we used 12s. And we're 5 years ahead of that. I did the Pecos and Jeeves. Then my son's built 2 rigs. Then he takes care of anywhere between 30 and 45 wells all the time to keep the water pumping. And it's an everyday project. We try to have multiple waters to call managers. You have to. So they're gonna make money. They gotta have something to drink. You can't let them run out. We're caught day. We got pipelines at the water. Yeah. Water is key. Water is life. This country out here, it promises you a whole lot, but if you treat it right, you have a question. Also, it's kind of over that goes with your stocking rates and with the water. You can't take more than you give. It just doesn't work. I was at a high school graduation a few years ago. The principal called it such a rumor. She said, she's telling these young people, she said, life is like a T account, an accountant. You gotta make more deposits than withdrawals. And I don't care whether it's your financial life, your personal life, your business life, or in these water bills. You can get away with it for a little while, make them all deposits, but you gotta make more deposits. And that's what we're trying to do with the water, to make deposits.
So, Janet, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to give you the last word. We've heard a lot of talk today about the groundwater districts across the state and how well that system is working. I don't know that there's anyone in the room that's had as much experience with the public water management than you. What would you do to improve the situation of groundwater management with respect to the districts that I described?
But there's several things. The first one I'd say a prayer to God that was gets him to strength. Because that'll help the large. It's a trick that is stating right. That better is anything else to get it talk over this, Rick. I know that this crazy about 3,000 acres getting to today over 30,000 fast. Dragons did our work and when the basketballs broken and everything. This year, we got out with 24 years, had it, and then that was the wrong 9 feet. Since that's it, to big drought, here, cheese and regular food. Okay, I can't let it want to fight it or you back, or just like that. So, only time with a black belly. I'm not like the Chicago. No, we measure over 30 wells. We've been doing it for 24 years. So I know the exact fraud that I was looking over this. Well, I don't have this. Where's Cody? I don't have this year's notice. But anyway, that one is dropped 9 feet, one is stayed even, and one is elevated. So I think our water's holding on, and this is just running over these agreements of that. You can across the state, get your data, get it in, hurry consultant, the grass or whatever you need, they can blame me, and just get more information about your water. That's what I'd suggest.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. I know that my colleague Robert Klotz, in White Mains Terrace on the border with Aberdeen and Presidio Valley, serve on civic driving institutions as well. Will join me in saying that no foundation in Texas has shown a greater commitment to the environment and to conservation over the years than Tomatoes Foundation. And we are extraordinarily grateful for your leadership and all the work that you've done with people of this stuff. And finally, the biggest single terrestrial environmental issue that we face is the continued fragmentation of activity. Texas loses rural and agricultural land faster than any other state. And if we think we can solve this problem without keeping families on ancestral land and helping them to do the right thing, then we're not going to make it. And so thank you all so much for what you do.